Hello my loves, welcome back to another video. I hope you're doing really well. Today I thought I could share 5 things I wish I knew before I started hybrid training and things that aren't really spoken about. I feel like hybrid is super popular right now. Everyone seems to have started running and I think it's absolutely amazing. But if you feel like you've dipped your toe in, you've done the odd run and you feel like you aren't really getting results with your running and you're not really getting your results with your lifting and you just feel confused on a whole, I've got you covered in this video. We're going to break things down and uncomplicate what currently seems a bit of a madness. As a bit of background, I started running back in 2020, but I literally did a handful of runs that year and they were very sporadic, just on a random Saturday. And I ran my first half marathon in 2021 and then I don't think I ran again for about 6 months after that. And I just didn't ever find like a flow with it. So I wanted to break things down to how I've got to the point where now I ran a marathon 3 and a bit weeks ago and I feel like I've got this really nice consistent routine and something that I've really started to enjoy. You might have come from the bodybuilding side, so like myself I mainly did bodybuilding style training from like age 19 to 23, 24, and I feel like I just stopped enjoying it. And just like anything that you do for a long time, you can go through phases, and I very much feel like I just stopped seeing the results that I wanted to see, but that mainly came from just not really enjoying my training and not having much structure. So let's get into the 5 things that I wish I knew. First thing I wish I knew before I started training hybrid is nutrition. So when you're obviously expending so much more energy, so for example during my marathon training block I was doing 2 sessions a day. I'd do it in the morning, so I'd do my lift, which is about 45 minutes, and then I'd do my run, which could be anywhere between 30 to an hour. So that is a big increase in overall expenditure. So with that comes, you need to be fueling for your workouts. So if you're also doing more endurance training, so longer distance runs, on those long runs you can literally be burning 1,000 calories. And what I think is super important is to make sure you're eating those calories back in order to be in a calorie surplus, and definitely at the absolute lowest point be at maintenance, because you think about it, you could be burning 1,000 calories on that run, and then if you're sticking to your usual calories, say that you'd be eating at around maintenance, except you've done all this work, you're no doubt going to be totally underfueled, also end up losing not only overall weight but muscle mass, and that is not what we want, as well as just not having energy and whatnot. And this is something that I don't see spoken about too much yet, so that you can maintain what muscle mass you currently have, and also if you're wanting to gain lean muscle whilst increasing your weight and progressively overloading, then nutrition is literally so important. Anytime I do a longer run or if I'm doing a double session, I'll always make sure that I'm in a calorie surplus that day, and it's really quite enjoyable, I must say. And I absolutely love the eating side of hybrid training, and especially during my marathon training prep it was a lot of eating, and with that as well can be difficult sometimes. It is more time consuming. That is one thing I found during training for a marathon, and also lifting in general, was I was spending a lot more time in the kitchen, so I had to do things like meal prep, just make sure I always had stuff in the fridge that I could grab that was readily available, rather than constantly having to cook, especially if I was working from home or if I'm on the go. And with your nutrition as well, you want to make sure you're getting enough protein. So I'd really recommend, if you haven't ever tracked your rough protein intake, even if it's just noting down in a journal or even in your phone notes what your average day looks like in terms of what protein sources you have, or if you are quite familiar with MyFitnessPal, just checking how many grams of protein you get. If you are trying to increase your overall lean muscle or maintain your muscle, you want to make sure you're on the higher protein side. I respond really well to a higher protein diet, so I've experimented, and the same I'd always recommend is trying out different macro splits, seeing how you respond to more protein, seeing if you prefer higher carb, and just testing things out, making sure you find a really good balance of what keeps you the most energized. A second thing I really wish I knew was around recovery, and sadly I feel like I only realized how important doing more recovery actually was when I either got an injury or a niggle, which is obviously too flipping late. So trust me on this one, you need to be doing more than just a couple random stretches at the end of your sessions, especially if you are running and also lifting. What I mean by this is doing more foam rolling, but not just saying like, oh, I'll foam roll this week, like actually scheduling in some sort of time, even if it's just when you're watching TV, like having a foam roller that you can roll out from underneath your sofa, and just spending some time getting into your tighter muscle groups like your calves. Like I find as soon as my distance goes up and I'm doing more longer distance with my running, my calves are generally just quite tight in general. So foam rolling is just the best. And also looking into myofascial releases, so that is things that you can use, like grabbing a golf ball, and if it's your foot that's tight, or like I say your calf, your hamstring, just applying pressure to an area really helps with releasing tight muscle groups. With recovery as well, doing mobility work, so if you're trying to get, say, a deeper squat, working on your hip mobility, making sure everything's nice and mobile. And the same for your runs. Like one thing I used to notice when I first started out running was like I didn't do too much activation, and that only led to getting little niggles in my hips. As well with recovery, you've heard it before, and it's one of those annoying things that you will hear again and again, but it truly is so important, which is getting 7 to 8 hours sleep a night. I struggle to get 8 hours, if I'm totally honest. Like 7 hours is something that's more achievable for me. Making sure I have a switch off time and dimming the lights about half an hour before I want to fall asleep. That's really helped, because I'm someone who struggles to actually fall asleep sometimes. Like my mind gets so busy, and I just think it helps reset my circadian rhythm when I play around with light and make sure I've got a really nice dark bedroom. The other thing around recovery and sleep is when my running distance have come up a lot, I'm burning so many calories, I'm constantly trying to eat more. What I've found was I started eating way too close to actually going to bed, and then I noticed that I just wake up a lot throughout the night. So eating like at least 1 to 2 hours before I actually go to sleep has really helped with getting into like a deeper sleep state. Third thing I wish I knew was getting the right split, not for Joe Bloggs' goals, but your goals. Everyone's got different primary goals generally, unless you're obviously training for the exact same performance-based goals, say if it is a marathon. But even then, you are going to most likely be training in a slightly different way, or have slightly different lifestyle goals. You've got less time. Like you could be comparing, say, your workout split to someone you see on Instagram whose actual job is mainly around content creation and fitness, and you are working 9 to 5 and you just physically wouldn't be able to train, say, in the middle of the day for 2 hours. So this is why I think it's important to look at your actual lifestyle and what goals that you set and where you can find time. So for example, when I was doing my marathon training and also wanting to maintain my lifts, so my running was my primary goal. So for that 10 weeks, for example, like the last few weeks when I was tapering off, my running was a higher priority. So I like if I was to choose between a run and a lift, I would actually choose the run, because I knew that was like my primary goal. Just like when I was tapering off, I wasn't progressively overloading the last couple of weeks. I was just like maintenance with my lifts, and I wasn't going to failure because running was my primary goal. But there could be a different change. So say if I'm training for a high rocks, that would be my primary goal. So maybe running would come second. So it's finding your balance. I find it a bit long to train twice a day sometimes. So what I would like to do is just get up earlier in the morning, do my lift, and then finish with my run or whatever order I want to do it in, and that way it's just done for the day. Whereas Mason, if you don't know my partner, he prefers to separate it. So he'd prefer to do 2 sessions on the double days, so like train in the morning and then train in the evening, and he finds that works for him. And it can change, and also not overfacing yourself. Like if it's just not realistic for you to do double days, don't worry, just focus on 3 lifts, so 3 weight sessions a week, 3 runs, and that's a 6-day split. You don't have to double up on certain days, but if that works for you, then great. Something else that's quite useful is to decide what you're focusing on. So with your weight training, is it hypertrophy? So are you doing more sets and reps, or is it strength based where you're doing fewer reps and you just want to focus on strength? Or is it just purely endurance? Say if you want running to be your total focus, and then you want to just do running specific workouts around that. Fourth thing I wish I knew was training to optimize towards my goals. So like I've said at the beginning, I came from more of a bodybuilding perspective, so my main goals at the time were to build strong, juicy glutes, and I wanted a strong back, but I didn't have specific performance goals in terms of, I had goals in terms of increasing my weight or getting stronger, say, but they weren't really around performing, such as getting a quicker run time or getting working towards a high rocks goal, should we say. So it was very different. So for example, how I used to structure my legs, I didn't really used to train calves too much or focus on mobility in my ankles, which I definitely should have done. I think it always benefits, but it is something that you can just overlook when you're training, say, to grow stronger booty or glutes. Whereas now I train to make sure that I can prevent injury as much as possible. So working on things like my mobility in my ankles, working on smaller muscle groups like my calves to make sure they're nice and strong. Again, I learned the hard way through getting an injury because I had an imbalance in my calves. I feel like my quads and hammies were quite strong, but smaller areas just like ankles and my like dorsiflexion was weaker. Things like doing plyo exercises are so amazing for improving your speed, improving your push-off power. Like so much of when we run is actually, it's a crazy statistic, like I think, is it 80? It's a crazy high statistic, the amount of work that is actually going through your calves. Then the fifth thing is scheduling your workouts. So rather than just going in blind and thinking, oh, what am I going to train today? If you have got a goal, say if it's to do a 5-kilometer race or a high rocks or a 10-kilometer half marathon, a full marathon, it's really important to schedule your workouts for the week so you know what you've got coming up. That way it just makes it a lot easier to progress because you can plan ahead of time. Like say if you've got a long run on a weekend, you can almost add that into socializing as well, and you just have a better idea of each week you're working towards something. It'd be like a missile just going and shooting willy-nilly, like, whereas it needs to be programmed, going into the right direction, and that way you're going to be a lot more on track to actually achieve that goal. And just making sure you actually have time, not running yourself into the ground with your training. I know for me, towards the end of my marathon training, that is something that I was finding really difficult. So it's just all about understanding like what you enjoy and what you can make time for. You don't want it to totally take over your life. That is also why I've created my Flowness Club community. Something is launching super soon. It's a space where I'm going to have all my programs, all my workouts, nutrition, everything in there, and a community where we can all connect and find our own unique flow. It's not about a one-size-fits-all program or approach that isn't something that you can maintain. I'm pretty sure we've all been there, bought the programs, not got the results, not maintained it, and that is exactly why I wanted to create something that is tailored to you and your goals, so it's something that's achievable. The early access link is in the description of this video, and I'm excited to hopefully see you in there. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this one's been useful. If there's anything you'd like to see in the next videos, just pop it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.